Thank you, Nanette, for your introduction and the opportunity to share the results of our study, co-authored by my colleagues at the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute. Professor Stephen Bellman, who is with us today on the panel, Dr. Faulkner, Dr. Cohen, and Professor Brewer. I'm presenting today from the Institute in my hometown of Adelaide, South Australia. Our paper looked at mechanical avoidance of radio advertising. Now, all media are sold as an opportunity to see or hear, and all media have ad avoidance. Hence, opportunity to see or hear doesn't equal actual exposure. This fits within a larger research stream here at the Institute, where we're asking, what's an ad spot worth? Our aim is to determine the value of an ad spot across media and content conditions. However, there exists a lack of empirical and independent research on radio audience retention. Consequently, most marketers seem to undervalue radio's marketing communications potential. An industry survey reported most marketers believe a third of the program audience is lost when people switch stations. That is, for every 10 listeners you get, 7 are exposed to your radio ads. If a third of the audience avoid, marketers could buy more ad spots to maintain coverage, but this would increase price. Estimating real ad exposure is hard without an empirical benchmark. Measured by the average minute audience, or ratings, exposure metrics are seen to be influenced by media and audience factors. One media factor is the program content. For example, music stations generally attract larger audiences. Listening location and consequently the listening device are other media factors chosen by the audience. For example, the car radio is conveniently available for switching stations. The main audience factor is audience availability. That is, radio ratings regularly peak when most people are available to listen, about the same time each day for most stations. This brought us to two main questions in determining the possible audience size during ads. The first, what media factors influence mechanical avoidance of radio advertising? And is mechanical avoidance of radio advertising affected by audience availability? Logically, consumers need some level of advertising for it to be effective, but expecting full exposure is just unrealistic. A common definition of advertising avoidance is all actions by media users that differentially reduce their exposure to ad content. Differentially meaning different types of avoidance may result in different levels of avoidance. In general, there are 3 types of ad avoidance. There's cognitive, so this could be ignoring the ad by thinking about something else. Physical, leaving the room or doing some task during ad breaks. And mechanical, so this is using the mechanical device to control the content. Cognitive and physical avoidance of television advertising can be observed by eyes on screen or leaving the room. But these signals may not indicate a loss of exposure to radio advertising. Since it is unlikely that people will leave their car to avoid radio ad breaks, our study focuses on mechanical avoidance. That being, muting the sound, switching radio stations, or turning off the radio. There are 2 main factors proposed by prior researchers to do with media. The first being program content. So this is music versus talk radio. Auditory complexity theory suggests that ads are easier to identify and avoid in music content because of the audio contrast between talk advertisements and music. Second, device technology determined by listening location. Here, affordance theory suggests that actions which are easier to perform are more likely to be performed. Mechanical avoidance is seen to likely increase during parts of the day when people are listening to radio on a device that makes it easier to avoid ads, such as on a mobile device when you're going to lunch or exercising, or in a car driving to work. We were given access to portable people meter data, or PPM data, from Canada for programs and advertisements. Vancouver was chosen as our test city because of its ethnic diversity. Radio station ratings from numerous were recorded on PPM devices, and advertising ratings came from their subsidiary, NLogic. PPM data tracked listeners in minutes, so about 800 panel members capturing their listening behaviours. Ad ratings, the audience retained during ad breaks, were captured or computed using the average minute audience count for 17 commercial radio stations. In total, data were collected across weekday day parts, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m, for 4 months over the year 2015-16, 1 month for each season. Across the 4 months, extracted data represented in total about 3 million programming minutes, 500,000 advertising minutes, and close to 850,000 individual ad spots. Of all the ad breaks tested, 42% comprised of one ad unit, which exhibited a minimal variation in ad ratings. Each ad break was for 1 minute or longer. The sample was representative of the population in age and gender. We used data from individual aged listeners, 12 years and older, as teenagers were likely to be heavier users of radio. Because the PPM data were aggregated, an online survey of a representative sample of Vancouver radio listeners was conducted to capture their individual behavioural data. We defined an advertising break as all non-program material, that is, station promotions and public service announcements, as well as commercials. To determine average mechanical avoidance, we measured the average ad break audience divided by the average program audience in a day part. For example, if the ad rating was below the program rating, so that is below 1, for example, 0.97 or 97%, this attracted or indicated 3% mechanical avoidance. As you can see in the table, on average, the rating dropped by 3% during the break. That is, if the audience was 100 people before the break, it was 97 during, which suggests that previous estimates of 1/3 were too high. Mechanical avoidance was slightly lower in the evening, when only 2% avoided the ads. This was also when the ratings dropped by about 2/3. Music stations encourage slightly higher rates of mechanical avoidance, so 4% versus practically zero avoidance for talk radio. And this is consistent with the greater audio contrast between ads and music content. Out-of-home listening had a slightly higher rate of mechanical avoidance than in-home, so 3% versus 1%. Most likely because of the more accessible controls on a radio device out of the home. Of course, this represented out of home in general, that is, listening in the car or office. Our study suggests that radio program ratings reflect what a marketer's ad spot will deliver. When planning radio for a reach strategy, marketers are encouraged to pick large stations, usually music types. Although music stations have slightly higher mechanical avoidance than talk stations, the audience loss is small and offset by having a higher reach. Another option is placing ad spots early in the working day, as these day parts have higher ratings to help build reach. Thank you for your time. Steve and I are happy to answer any of your questions, or feel free to send us an email or contact us or connect with us via LinkedIn.